So, my friend, you talked about sadness, grief, pain, suffering, and sometime question comes to our mind, why I am sad? Seems to be no reason. And at other times the mind starts thinking and experiencing sadness, loneliness, grief, pain. They all are suffering. So where the suffering lies, it lies in the mind. Where the peace is located, it is also located in the mind. So you have a garbage at one place in your house, and you have another object which is totally pure in the same room. What should you do? You throw the garbage and you align with what is good. So we need to explore in our own mind why and how this suffering, this sadness, this anxiety, this loneliness, this grief, this pain. In Eastern wisdom, we say we end suffering. We don't say we manage suffering. We manage sadness, we manage anger. There is no word as such, management of anger or sadness or grief or loneliness. So, keep in your mind, end of suffering, throwing the garbage out. What is left is purity, is calmness. That is why we say peace and happiness, love and wisdom, all are our essential nature. So in today's lesson, we are going to explore the ways and the means and clear understanding of these negative traits that enters into the mind. So when I say explore, it means we should have a knowledge of the world outside and the knowledge of the world inside. Knowledge of the world outside is different from what I am. Knowledge of the TV, knowledge of my relations, knowledge of my home, knowledge of my city and the county and the nation and the people. They all are separate from me. So whatever is separate from me, we say it is objective knowledge. And what pertains to me and I, that is what is subjective knowledge. So Eastern wisdom talks in detail about the subjective knowledge. What is that subjective knowledge? Who am I? How I relate myself to the world? How I relate myself to the people? And what causes in that relationship? What causes the pain? What causes the grief? So as a mother, one son, your relationship coming from inside the mind is different from the relationship with your second son, with your daughter, your perception, your vision, your thought, your feeling. See that? So question comes, can I live into the state of peace and happiness? Even outside, I relate myself differently to the different people. Say you love someone too much dearly, and that person is gone. Sadness and the grief comes in the mind. And there is an enemy you dislike. Now that person is gone. The mind remains quiet and it says, good. Thank you, existence. But question is, both are individuals. One person gone, sadness and grief. Other person gone, it's kind of pleasure, kind of calm. No, thank God, gone. So where the problem lies in the mind, I have to understand this mind clearly, deeply, and with the right knowledge. Now see that when I say right knowledge, knowledge may be discovered at a particular time. We say our Eastern wisdom is 6,000 years old. It may have been discovered in the Himalayas, or in the city, or in any language, or by any person. What is very important? If the knowledge is right and truth, we must follow it. So if the knowledge is right in truth and it can be applied in day-to-day life, then we must follow it. Even if we do not understand, we have to repeat. We have to ask the mind, understand it again, and apply in daily life. Now tell me, the knowledge of the grief is right to accept and continue to live in that grief or sadness, or understand the cause, have a right knowledge, and walk into your life. My master used to say, walk on, walk on, walk on. You have problem, walk on. Why? Why? The mind will discover the peace within in spite of any changes in the event and the people taking place. My master's famous proverb, O mind, be at peace, this will also pass. So the sadness, O mind, be at peace, this will also pass. So what master says? That peace is inherent in us. It is always there. So mind, be at peace, look at the grief, look at the sadness, because they come and they go. They come with a greater intensity and they leave the mind into the sadness, loneliness. But if we are aware of the peace in the mind behind that grief and the sadness, what will happen? Ultimately, we are the victorious. We are the winner. Step by step, we are picking up the simple principles so that once you listen to it again and again, and then you start thinking the way I'm talking to you in your mind. What is going to happen? O mind, be at peace, this will also pass. Pain has come, peace is inside, I'm aware. O mind, be at peace, this will also pass. Pleasure has come, this will also pass. O mind, be at peace. They are short-lived. Whether it is pleasure or pain or grief or sadness or loneliness. My grandfather died in 1989. Next year, 1990, my father died. 91, My uncle died, 92. My older brother died. So all the elders in my family used to visit my home and say it's a bad omen in your house, so better to perform certain ritual to avoid the death. And I was going to my master at the same time. My master said it's all rubbish. Live your life with the right knowledge, right karma. Birth and death are not in your hands. So you'll be surprised that all those old women who used to scare, in India you have certain kind of rituals, and in every society. So they said, you will also die. Every year one person older is dying. Now you are the oldest in the family. I'm still alive. So element of fear, if it sets into your mind, that also leaves you in sadness, in the grief and the loneliness. So I did not perform any ritual, and ultimately after a few years the same relatives started coming to my house. They had stopped it because of the fear of the death. I don't have a choice for the birth. I don't have a choice for the death. No choice for the birth, death, parents, country, place where I am born. I don't have any choice. So we are going slowly to understand it. So this living life has two aspects. One is outward living and the other is inward living. How we think, how we speak, how we choose a particular thing to be done, and how we perform our action in the world outside. And what is the world outside? We have a society, we have a family life, we have a professional life. It is the same mind that lives outwardly. At work, at home, in relations. So we build relations with some people, and the mind causes the attachment, and that attachment lives in the mind. And if that person is gone, we feel shocked, we feel sad, we feel lonely. So we are going slowly to think over it, that if I am attached to a person and build a relationship, that person is gone, what happens to my mind? And if I see a person next door whom I have a disliking, my mind wants to go away from that person, and if that person leaves, what happens to the mind? You see that? It is not because of the person outside, something deeper. It is how my mind thinks, perceives, experiences about the world outside. And what is that world? World of people, place, thing. So we should understand that clearly. So this is an extrovert life. You can say it's a behavior living, or we can say it's a worldly living. Is that all about my life? No. There is an inward living. How do I feel? Who am I? What do I understand about myself? How inside is influenced by a particular event outside. And we have to check whether we have enough control over inside, not to allow that inside to be influenced by anything happening outside. That is why we are a human being. That is why we are a human being. So now see, the outward living, we have little control. In exchange, in relationship, in work, because other factors also count. But inside, I have total control. I have a choice to make. I can choose sadness, I will get frustrated. I choose peace in the mind, sadness is gone. I have total control inside myself. Look at yourself inside. Be there inside, explore, find the truth. We are talking of the knowledge. We are not talking of the cult, dogma, belief, religion, etc., etc. So now see that we discussed just now the outward living, the worldly living, and living within myself. So if I know who is this self, and if this self cannot get rid of the sadness, problem, pain, grief, then we have to live in it, then there is no choice. But we have to explore. But I remember one more thing just now. When we have two types of living, just see that where the mind gives too much of stress. So that is what I say, outer riches and inner poverty. So if you have outer riches of all kinds and inner poverty, sadness, grief, suffering cannot be avoided in your life. When you have inner riches, first you start from yourself. You have the inner riches. What are those inner riches? Permanent peace and happiness, love and truth and the wisdom is oozing out from you. You are living into that state, and now that inner riches is expressed in thought, speech, and action in the worldly life. So, both the lives are meaningful. Both the life has a purpose. Both the life has a goal, and you continue living in peace and happiness. Now see the other side of the coin. We want to fill our inner life with the outer riches. I have lot of money. So buy happiness. So the outer riches cannot buy happiness. Outer comfort cannot buy peace. So we need to understand it clearly. Now, it is not only the wealth, luxuries, and the comfort we want to take inside, but at the same time, the fear associated with the wealth, fear and anxiety associated with the relations, attachment and detachment also goes inside the mind. And they make the mind our home. Result, sadness. Result, anxiety. Result, reaction. Result, stress. Result, suffering. But why this happens? The mind after attachment with these stuff that is present outside causes dependence. We dependent for our peace and happiness on the people, place, object, and time. Take an example. I depend for peace and happiness on any one of my, say, my dad died and I was depending on my dad for my happiness. So when that person is gone, my mind says happiness is also gone. See the truth in it? What is the truth? Is birth and the death in might is my choice? Can I stop the birth and the death of anyone in the world? Can I stop the birth and death of my own self? So one aspect of the knowledge. And the second aspect of the knowledge is that the world is continuously changing. Whosoever is present in this world has to leave one day. When the car becomes old, we sell it. What about the body? What about the mind? We never say body become, old, so I have to replace it. Old, now I have less capacities and abilities to walk, etc., etc. Why we are attached to it? Body is bound to be old, and if I am not attached to it, I respect the condition of the body. I take care of it, and I live in peace and happiness. You see, today I'm picking up lot of subtle principles, so you have to listen to it again and again to get out of it. So the mind is running with pleasure, pain, obsession outside. Are you obsessed with yourself? No. No. Why am I running for pleasure outside? Because I'm obsessed with the people, place, objects outside. So what is happening to the mind? Fear, sadness, anxiety, pain, pleasure, conflict, depending on the situation. Another problem is also there, that we are scared to go inside ourselves, sit inside and become aware. Is anyone, anything, any object go with me, continue to remain with me 24/7? Answer is no. But the mind is scared to explore that. Our masters, they say you have to sit with a calm mind and understand, acquire, gain the right knowledge. And that is why we say money cannot buy happiness, relations cannot bring love, objects cannot give us everlasting peace. So we understood the two aspects of living, outside, inside. The worldly living and the living with my real self. We also understand that whenever there is a sadness, say that when the sadness comes, challenge your mind. How come my real self is of the nature of peace and happiness? Why this sadness? Why this grief? Why this pain? Why this anxiety? Just even for a minute, when you think like this, the mind changes. Oh yes, I see that. I see that. I see that. There is another way to think. It does not mean that we should not be working to earn wealth, power, possession, pleasure. Has become the goal of the mind. To regulate the life according to the Eastern wisdom is the way out to get away from the sadness. Where is the Eastern way of living? Let me move my life from inside to outside. What is inside is the real self. What is the real self? Peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. So at every moment, I should live from inside to outside. And I should give a break to the mind that forces me to live from outside to inside. Sadness comes from outside. Anxiety comes from outside. Pain comes from outside. Pleasure comes from outside. Duality comes from outside. Grief comes from outside. And if the mind accepts, it causes the suffering. So we have to shine this mind with the wisdom, with understanding. And when we do it with understanding, the life changes. And that is why I always used to say, and you have repeated maybe hundreds of times, mind working on me, and I am working on the mind. Mind working on me means what? I am receiving all the influences from outside. It does not mean that I should leave all the influences coming from the world. So I should filter out what is required and what is not required. The moment I make a choice, I invoke my intellect and the mind starts working on. I start working on the mind. Another principle to remember, that this mind is naturally in peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. But mind is made unnatural by receiving the influences from outside that causes reaction, jealousy, sadness. So what is that factor which helps us? Now I'm answering every bit of a question. I will try myself not to leave any doubt. The moment there is a doubt in the knowledge, the mind will follow its own habit. What is the habit? Let me get influenced by outside. Then anxiety, reaction, duality, conflict enters into my mind. So here comes that how to prevent that influence. So I should use my intellect. What is intellect? Intellect should lead me to wisdom. I should take the intellect in every circumstances and events where the mind is receiving the inputs from the world. So when the intellect is applied, we start thinking. So what does it mean by applying the intellect? Are we living in the wisdom or ignorance? So when we live with that intellect, internally, we do not allow the mind to receive any influences as it is. Anger is come, okay. Then mind is influenced by the anger and hesitation and the sadness. The intellect is sleeping. It stops thinking. Oh, there has to be a reason for a grief and the sadness. That is how the mind exerts its influence. But the intellect says, no, peace is my essential nature. Outer event is pertaining to grief or the sadness, but inner nature is full of peace and happiness. You simply think of it. So, what happens when you start thinking? You invoke your intellect. That is the first thing to understand. Second thing, you see the background, the sky and the sea. So when you see the sky and the sea as it is, there is no filter. What happens? The sense organ perceives clearly the object as it is. So sense organs must see the event and the object as it is without any coloring by the mind. When the mind colors, sense organs becomes dull. They do not see what is right. And it's all a matter of awareness. Yesterday, I closed my eyes. I was sitting in a living room. I was sitting in a living room on a couch, and then I imagined my dad is in front of me, who died in 1989. Imagined. I'm stressing again, imagined. And then I opened my eyes. Dad was not there. So all the thoughts are imagined. Sadness, grief. And then I closed my eyes and I saw that I'm in 10th grade. My mom and dad both are there. They are talking to me and they were saying me, be a medical doctor. We dreamed that you should be a medical doctor. I opened my eyes. Both were not there. We color our mind by thinking, this person is not here now with me, with whom I am attached. I was attached. I liked very much. Is it not an imagination? But that person is no more. So I told my mind through the intellect that this is all about imagination. It appeared, it has gone, my mind lives in peace. Slowly, we are going step by step. You see that car is an instrument, body is an instrument. Senses perceive what is right and good. If the senses perceive what is right and good, just in the clear, it means you are keeping your intellect aware, pure, clear. Understand this example again. The car is your body. Car is an instrument. Sense organ, the wheels it has, these wheels are sense organs. The steering and the paddle is your mind, and the intellect is the driver in a car of the body. Think of it. Intellect is the driver. So what the intellect does? Intellect gives us the knowledge, gives us the option, gives us the choice to drive here or there. Clear? Now the mind is steering and paddle. So mind perceives the sadness and it loses control over the car. The intellect is in the background, it does not take any action. What will happen? Accident. I am attached to this. Mind says, the mind follows. Mind takes the car, means the body, and the sense organs there. Intellect is sleeping. What will happen? It's a matter of thinking, just playing with it. The mind is playing with the sadness and anxiety and grief. Why don't you play with the mind? Align the intellect. Okay, so intellect comes into the picture. So the mind getting obsessed with the idea and the thought of the sadness, the intellect comes. Intellect says, hold on, before you move there, let me understand what choice I have to make. And the moment your intellect is there, you are aware, you start thinking, the sadness, the impact of the sadness is already gone. We're going to understand a little deeper into that process, but one thing that is sure. But why we do not think like this? Because of cultural conditioning, social conditioning, attachment and detachment, likes and dislikes. So, can you tell me what intellect should think? Yes, so simple. Intellect should always be thinking how to live in peace and happiness, love and wisdom, truth. So now your intellect is thinking. Is it not your goal of life? But the same intellect also realizes that there is a sadness and a grief. What should we do? Give me your answer. You have two people who are related to you. One is right and just. The other is unjust, but you are closely attached to the second one. And both come to you and ask you to fulfill their desire. What should you do? Do you favor the first one who is closely related to you and you are attached to it, or you should favor who is right and just? That is the choice we have to make inside. We have hundreds of thoughts coming into my mind. Am I aware to filter what is not desired, where I am attached, where attachment is causing the sadness and the grief and the pain, and etc. Take simple example. Mind says I am sad. What to choose? If you choose you are sad, then the mind will be sad, lonely, crazy passionate. What to choose? Now, if you choose peace in the intellect, let me think and choose peace. In this talk, I'm just picking up a couple of principles. Why? So that you listen to it again and again, and even a couple of the principles that you pick up, and the mind absorbs that, the mind will change. And in the next talk, we will go a little deeper. So my master used to say that there are two kinds of treasures. One treasure makes us extremely selfish, self-centered, with reference to the body and the mind and the pleasure and the possessions. And other is very open. It expands our mind and intellect. It leads to a sense of wisdom. So in a worldly social sense, one is known as demon treasures, and other is known as godly treasures. No relative should die, ever die. My mind is stuck to that idea, that attachment, that liking and dislike. I should have more wealth, more pleasure of all kinds. All the entire world is only for me. If you see all these statements, the mind is constantly running after the pleasure, attachment, likes, dislikes. It has created a circle. Only intellect can break it. Now, what is godly treasure? Peace is within me. I will always choose what is right and good for me. I want that will I will want, or I will be seeking, that will take me to peace all the time. I will check if it is a pleasure or the peace. I will check and make a choice to the peace instead of a pain. Means I should think in my mind. So that leads to another step. How to think, when to think. When the mind is surrounded by anxiety, sadness, and problems, don't get upset. You start thinking. Normally, the mind dictates over the intellect. And the mind starts working on us. I am sad, I am suffering, I am in grief, I am lonely. It is the moment you start thinking, let me think. Let me make a choice inside me. Can you tell me the weight of a sadness? Can you tell me the color of sadness? Can you tell me the height of the sadness? It is none. Where it is? It is in the mind. So let the intellect be active. You say calmly, I don't want sadness, but I'm not reacting to it. Let me understand and think. Can the sadness be attached to me, or I'm attached to sadness? Am I attached to anxiety, or anxiety is attached to me? So you are separating you from the sadness, you from the anxiety. This is what we have studied before, is known as discernment. I will only choose what is right, good, just for my life and living. But my dear friend, understand, knowledge and the practice should go together. Without knowledge, practice is not complete. Without practice, knowledge will not deliver you from the suffering. Knowledge and the practice should go together. So after having that knowledge, how to apply that knowledge in day-to-day life? 3 words are used in Eastern wisdom. One is sadhana. What is the meaning of sadhana? Ask the intellect to choose what is desired in your life, and ask the intellect to drop what is not desired in the life. That is sadhana. The intellect does it internally, and then you loosen the knot of the suffering. Second word is known as upaya. Upaya, literally all these 3 words means practice, but practice in a different sense. So first is the intellect has chosen what is desired and ready to drop what is not desired. So how to drop what is not desired? The second word works, upaya. Upaya means I follow certain steps in practice, and once I reach to a state of calmness and peace, I leave that. The way you drive home, what you do, you park the car in your garage. You don't bring the car inside your living room. You left the car, you have reached, the job is done. Then comes abhyasa. Abhyasa means regular practice. So when you do the regular practice, following the first 2 steps, the result will be yours. So you see in the first sadhana, what is desired and what is not desired. There are 2 options. I am very sad. What should I do? I am very sad. The mind is repeating. I am into anxiety. I am reacting. What should I do? That is one way of thinking. But if you allow the intellect to think what the intellect thinks, is sadness desired? No. Is anxiety desired in my life? No. Why it has come? Let me start thinking. It is as simple as simple. The intellect. So when you awaken the intellect and make a choice what is desired and not desired, and so it's like a witness. In a court, the intellect is working like a witness. It's neither going to the sadness coming from the mind. It is neither going to the peace. It says, let me check, let me understand, let me be a witness. So the moment you are a witness to the sadness and the grief and the grief are separated from you. They start living at a distance from you. And the moment they start living at a distance from you, 90% you are free. Sadhana, upaya, abhyasa. Another way to understand it, the moment you have a sadness, you ask the intellect to think on the other side of the sadness and grief and the suffering. So the intellect realizes, I am suffering today. Yesterday I was happy. The intellect says, today I feel crazy. Yesterday I was relaxed. Why there are two sides alternating? And it has been happening days after days, weeks after weeks, months after months. Can I get rid of all these alternating pain, pleasure, sadness, anxiety, duality, conflict forever? Eastern wisdom says yes. Again, I'm invoking beautiful 3 more principles in today's talk. First thing, the intellect should remain indifferent while you are thinking. So when you keep all the alternatives at bay, you discover the equanimity inside. The calmness is there and then. Equanimity or indifference means intellect is not taking any side. Whether it's a grief or a calmness, reaction or response, profit or loss, pain or pleasure. In equanimity, viveka deepens. In equanimity, viveka, discernment deepens. So you're working on the mind, or the mind is working on us. Now you know that intellect has taken over your life, and now you are working on the mind, and that mind will take you deeper into the practice. And the knowledge is awakened. I'll go deeper into the sadness and the grief based on the application in our next talk. Be in peace. Keep smiling.